What started as a quiet audit at Royal Lodge, the longtime home of Sarah Ferguson, has exploded into a full-blown royal crisis. Behind a sealed wall, inspectors uncovered boxes of unauthorized royal documents, surveillance maps, transcripts, even private photographs of Princess Diana and her sons. When Prince William saw the evidence, he acted swiftly. Within 48 hours, someone close to the crown lost their royal title, stripped without warning. The files were shocking. The fallout? Immediate. And as William dug deeper, it became clear someone inside the family had been hiding secrets for decades. The morning calm before the storm at Clarence House. It was 7:42 a.m. on a bitter November morning when Prince William received a red-sealed folder marked Priority, Private Intel. The courier, a royal aide with 11 years of service, handed it over in silence. William had just finished a short breakfast in Clarence House, planning for a light day of briefings. But as he read the first page, everything changed. His expression hardened. The words were crisp, clipped, and alarming. Hidden room discovered during standard survey at Royal Lodge. Sensitive content found inside. Royal Lodge, the long-term residence of Sarah Ferguson, had been undergoing routine safety and structural checks as part of a 2025 maintenance audit. But what inspectors found wasn't ordinary. Behind a false panel in the West Wing, they uncovered a concealed space. Inside, 5 sealed boxes sat untouched. Their labels were dated between 1996 and 1999, each stamped with "Confidential, not for archive." The briefing made it clear. No one on staff recalled authorizing that storage. Someone had wanted them hidden. William's aide explained the files contained handwritten notes, unregistered voice cassettes, and transcripts with no official clearance tags. Names were mentioned: Princess Diana, Prince Harry, and a young William, barely 15 at the time. At least one folder referenced internal palace advisors from the late 1990s. The tone of the report was urgent, not speculative. Whoever hid the materials had knowledge and access they were never meant to have. Without hesitation, William cleared his schedule. Meetings were canceled. Guests were informed he was unavailable until further notice. He walked straight into the private operations room and gave his first order. "I want a full team assembled by noon. Discretion is everything." That calm, quiet morning at Clarence House was gone. What followed would shake the monarchy from the inside out. By 12:08 p.m., a secure convoy left Clarence House, heading for Royal Lodge. William traveled without press or fanfare. What had been found wasn't just sensitive, it was dangerous. Inside those dusty boxes lay stories that hadn't been heard in over 25 years. And as the documents were carried into the secure reading chamber, no one knew yet who had placed them there, or why they had stayed hidden since the final years of Diana's life. The Forgotten Room and the Secret Cache. The hidden room was discovered behind a sealed archway in the west corridor of Royal Lodge, just steps from a former staff entrance rarely used since 2001. The structure appeared untouched since the late 1990s. Royal inspectors initially thought it was leftover construction space, but when they broke through the paneling, they were stunned. Inside were 5 archival-grade boxes, sealed with wax, dated, and labeled private, non-catalogued. No digital records existed. No trace of official storage. Each box was packed carefully. Inside were over 90 folders containing a mix of items: handwritten memos, surveillance-style transcripts, unregistered audio cassettes, and even 2 rolls of undeveloped camera film. What raised immediate alarm was the content. Some papers referenced Princess Diana's private meetings. Others mentioned William and Harry during 1997 and 1998. Most disturbingly, a number were written in handwriting unfamiliar to palace archivists. Some had no known connection to royal staff, outsiders who had no clearance. Several files appeared to document moments never officially recorded. Private conversations inside Kensington Palace, family visits, even personal reflections Diana may have shared with confidants. None of this had passed through the royal archives. It didn't look like mishandled paperwork. It looked like a shadow archive, hidden deliberately, possibly stored there during the confusion following Diana's death in August 1997. Royal security began a quiet internal sweep to determine who had access to Royal Lodge during that time. Senior aides concluded quickly, this wasn't an accident. The placement, sealing, and content suggested long-term intent. This was hidden, not forgotten, one aide said. It was meant to stay buried. William, upon receiving the initial scan of inventory sheets, grew visibly tense. The names, the dates, the tone. Everything about the cash whispered something dangerous. Someone had been keeping their own record of the royal family. And whoever it was, they had access no outsider should have had. By that evening, William requested a full lockdown on the documents. No copies, no leaks, no phones in the room. At 8:33 p.m., he entered the reading suite alone and began reading. As he turned the pages one by one, the calm in his posture gave way to something colder, something sharper. This wasn't just memory. It was surveillance. It was intrusion. And within minutes, William gave a quiet, chilling command. Find out who did this. Now. William reads the files. The first folder William opened was labeled Meeting, Diana, KP Garden, June 1997. It described, in alarming detail, a private conversation between Diana and a close friend. But what shocked William most was the accuracy. Exact phrases his mother had said, the bench they'd sat on, the time it ended, 7:19 p.m. The only problem? That meeting had never been publicly acknowledged, and whoever documented it had no official reason or right to be there. The second file was worse. It included typed transcripts from a call between Diana and William from July 1997, a month before her death. The pages outlined William's emotional reaction to the pressure he was facing at Eton, his concerns about public life, and his frustration with constant media attention. The conversation had taken place on a secure line, supposedly. Yet, here it was, typed out in full, complete with timestamps down to the second. As William turned more pages, the violations multiplied. Descriptions of Diana in her bedroom, walking through palace gardens, comforting Harry after nightmares. None of it felt like history. It felt like surveillance. At one point, he stopped reading and closed the folder with sharp finality. His jaw was clenched. His hands, though steady, gripped the armrests of the chair like steel. One aide said later, he didn't yell, but the room felt like it had dropped 10 degrees. William stood, folder still in hand, and said only this: we need to find out who did this. Now. He wasn't reacting as the Duke of Cornwall or heir to the throne. He was reacting as Diana's son. And for the first time since the coffin vow had been opened, William faced a new storm. One born not from silence, but from secrets someone had recorded and hidden for far too long. Within the hour, one name surfaced repeatedly in old delivery logs: Sarah Ferguson. Royal Lodge had been her home since 1997. While no direct blame had been placed, her proximity to the hidden room raised immediate questions. William made the call himself. "I need to see her. Tonight." She arrived quietly, escorted through the side entrance. What followed wasn't an interrogation. It was a confrontation, with calm words, but devastating implications. Sarah Ferguson brought in. It was 9:47 p.m. when Sarah Ferguson arrived at the private entrance of Clarence House, escorted by two plainclothes royal officers. She wasn't told why, just that Prince William had asked to see her urgently and privately. Her expression was calm, but her voice trembled slightly as she greeted the aide. "This isn't a social call, is it?" The answer was clear in the silence. She was led into a small chamber near the east wing. No tea, no press team, just William, waiting. He didn't raise his voice, didn't accuse her. He simply slid a folder across the table and opened it. This was found at Royal Lodge, in a sealed room. Inside were images of the boxes, lists of the contents, and photocopies of two documents referencing Princess Diana in June and July 1997. Sarah's eyes widened. She leaned in, scanning the text. When she looked up, her voice cracked. "I swear, I didn't know these were there." William studied her closely. Her shock didn't feel rehearsed. She sat back, shaking her head. "I remember boxes arriving years ago. I assume they were storage from the old staff quarters. That would have been 2004, maybe 2005. She blinked hard. "I thought they were from old admin, movers, contractors, people I didn't question." William stayed silent. He asked no follow-up questions. Instead, he simply said, "Do you recall who brought them?" She hesitated. "There were outside helpers. I'll try to remember." "I'll try." Then came the moment that broke her composure. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Please, don't let this touch Beatrice and Eugenie. This wasn't their doing. They've never even been in that room." William nodded slightly. "This isn't about your daughters, but Royal Lodge was used to hide something, and I need to know who allowed that to happen." Sarah didn't argue. She just whispered, "I'll cooperate. Fully." At 1:20 a.m., a final sealed box was brought from Royal Lodge under heavy escort. It had been wedged beneath floorboards, marked "Private, Do Not Catalog." When opened, what lay inside was more disturbing than anything else. Photographs, handwritten surveillance notes, diagrams of the palace, and images of Diana and her children, captured in moments no camera should have seen. For William, it wasn't just evidence, it was a violation, and the next file would leave him visibly shaken. The final box. The final box arrived at the secure chamber inside Clarence House just after 2 a.m. It was smaller than the others, unmarked, save for a handwritten tag. London, 1997 to 1998. William opened it himself, surrounded by two aides and a royal security officer. Inside, bundled tightly in cloth and plastic, were over 150 photographs. Most were faded. Some were grainy. But what united them was chilling. They showed Princess Diana, William, and Harry in deeply private settings. Settings with no public access. Settings where no one should have been watching. The first photo showed Diana sitting alone in the palace garden at Kensington Palace, dated July 12, 1997, time-stamped 7:36 p.m. She looked tired, distracted. The second showed William and Harry playing on the lawn with their nanny, taken from above, likely from a hidden angle. Another showed Diana holding her youngest son in what looked like a private sitting room, an area where security cameras weren't installed. One staffer whispered, "These were taken by someone who knew exactly where to hide." More disturbing were the notes included: maps of blind spots in Buckingham Palace, surveillance diagrams of entry points, and highlighted sections showing camera gaps in St. James's Palace. The notes were handwritten, dated across 1996 to 1998, and signed with initials not yet identified. One file was labeled KP Evening Surveillance, and listed movements from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. over several weeks. Someone had been tracking Diana, and possibly her children, during private family hours. William paused longest at one photo: Diana in a nightgown, standing near a window, unaware. It was deeply invasive. More than wrong, it was cruel. His hand tightened around the edge of the desk. One aide described him as stone-faced, but deeply shaken. This was no accident. This was personal surveillance. William knew immediately. This wasn't just about memory. This was about betrayal from inside. And now, the only question that mattered was, who had done this? The next morning, William summoned the head of royal security and his private secretary. The surveillance diagrams made one thing clear: whoever created them had insider access. These weren't the actions of a nosy outsider. They were methodical, planned, and deeply embedded in palace knowledge. William ordered a full top-down review of Royal Lodge's past staff, contractors, and guest lists from 1996 to 2004. And as he walked out of the chamber, he said only one sentence: "This is bigger than one house." The unthinkable. The phrase sounded impossible, but it was now the only explanation being considered inside palace walls: a mole. The materials found inside Royal Lodge couldn't have come from casual observers or paparazzi. The accuracy of the surveillance notes, the precision of the photos, and the blind spot diagrams matched internal security blueprints, details only available to senior staff or trusted contractors during the late 1990s. William sat in a classified briefing by 9:30 a.m., flanked by advisors, military intelligence, and palace aides. 3 entries caught everyone's attention: logbooks from 1998, 1999, and 2001, each noting temporary clearance for off-site logistics crews during minor renovations. Cross-referencing those entries against modern staff records revealed 2 missing names, now unaccounted for. William demanded a full personnel audit of all names connected to Royal Lodge, Kensington Palace, and St. James's Palace from 1996 to 2004. The investigation widened. This was no longer just a discovery. It was a potential breach of national trust. More leads followed. One ex-staffer had since disappeared from public records. Another had worked with private surveillance companies in 1999, later absorbed into international security firms. Intelligence flagged possible connections to tabloid leaks that began shortly after Diana's passing, especially in 1998, when multiple unverified photos of Diana's final months began surfacing. Now it made chilling sense. William said quietly, "We didn't lose these images. They were sold." He gave one final instruction at the end of the briefing: "Start from scratch. Every staff file, every contractor, every camera record. I want this trail followed to its last thread." To aides in the room, his tone was unshakable. One said, "He didn't blink. He wasn't shaken anymore. He was resolute." For William, this was about more than control. It was about reclaiming history and ensuring that Whatever enemy had buried those truths would never come close to the crown again. Within 48 hours, William took decisive action. A quiet but powerful internal decision was made. Anyone even indirectly connected to the materials, if holding a royal title, would be evaluated, and if necessary, stripped. This was no longer personal. It was structural. The days of turning away from shadows were over. The monarchy wasn't going to be polite about betrayal anymore. William wasn't just investigating a past crime. He was erasing its protection, one name at a time. William makes his move. The crisis meeting began at 6:40 a.m. in a secured chamber beneath Kensington Palace, a room used only 3 times since 2012. Present were William, 2 intelligence officers, a legal advisor, and the head of palace operations. The evidence recovered at Royal Lodge, the photographs, the blind spot maps, the transcripts from 1997 to 1998, was laid out across a long table. The internal audit had flagged one individual with unusual access, questionable activity logs, and unexplained proximity to the hidden room. William stood at the head of the table, jaw set, reviewing each page again. By 7:55 a.m., he made the decision. Not emotional, not loud, just precise. A royal title cannot be held by anyone connected to this level of breach, he said. The legal advisor confirmed that under the Royal Titles Act, titles granted after 1995 could be reviewed or revoked under integrity risk. William signed the order with a single stroke of the pen. No ceremony, no delay, no loophole. Within minutes, a title held for over 20 years was quietly stripped, effective immediately. The tone in the room shifted. This was no symbolic act. This was a warning shot fired from within the monarchy itself. One aide later described William's posture. He wasn't angry. He was absolute. The removal sent shockwaves through internal circles. Dozens of officials, retainers, and senior staff suddenly realized this investigation wasn't another palace formality. It was a purge. And William wasn't protecting reputations. He was protecting the crown, and, more personally, the memory of his mother. By 9:10 a.m., private calls were made to ensure the title removal wouldn't leak. But inside the palace, the message spread fast. The Prince of Wales had crossed a threshold no heir had crossed in decades. The quiet era of overlooking misconduct was over. William's final statement to the room made that clear. This ends now. No more shadows. And with that, the monarchy shifted, not through ceremony, but through steel. After the internal shockwave, William briefed the only person whose approval mattered, King Charles. The meeting took place late that evening inside Buckingham Palace, just after 10:03 p.m. Charles listened in silence as William described the photos, the transcripts, and the revoked title. The king didn't interrupt, didn't defend, didn't question. When William finished, Charles said something unexpected, words that shifted the balance of power quietly, permanently. And with those words, the investigation became William's alone. King Charles responds. The conversation between Charles and William began slowly. The king sat near the window of his private study, hands folded, listening as William detailed the surveillance findings, photographs from 1997, blind spot grids from 1998, unregistered logs from 2001. 47 minutes passed before Charles spoke. The first words were soft, almost fragile. Some truths must be handled like glass. William waited, expecting caution, perhaps hesitation. Instead, Charles continued, "And you are the one who must handle them now?" Charles's face looked older than usual. He admitted he had failed to confront similar shadows after Diana's death in August 1997, fearing the consequences. He confessed to avoiding internal power struggles in the late 1990s, choosing stability over investigation. "I chose quiet," he said. "Quiet doesn't protect us. It corrodes us." For William, the admission carried more weight than any royal decree. It meant the king understood what was at stake and what had already been lost. Then Charles made the decision that changed everything. He handed William a document granting him full authority under Royal Prerogative 12, a rarely invoked power that allowed the heir to lead internal security affairs without consultation. It hadn't been used since 1974. Now it was in William's hands. "Handle this privately," Charles said. "Completely, cleanly, without fear." It wasn't abdication. It was trust, a silent transfer of actual power wrapped inside a father's regret. William accepted the authority with a nod, not triumph. He didn't want the power. He wanted the truth. As he left the study at 11:08 p.m., aides noticed something different in both men. Charles looked relieved, as if unburdened. William looked unyielding, as if strengthened. 2 generations had finally reached an understanding, not about the past, but the future. The palace was no longer responding. It was acting. With full authority, William's next step was both necessary and painful. He needed to speak to Sarah Ferguson again, not with suspicion, but with clarity. Evidence from Box 5 uncovered late that evening had new implications. The Duchess wasn't the perpetrator, but her residence had been the hiding place. The next morning, she entered a secure room at 10:02 a.m., bracing herself. What William told her would bring relief and consequences. Sarah Ferguson cooperates fully. Sarah arrived at the palace with visible worry. The events of the previous 48 hours had spread internally. Whispers, speculations, quiet concern for her daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. When she entered the secure chamber, William greeted her without hostility, but with a gravity she felt immediately. He placed new photographs on the table, dated 1997, 1998, and 2000. They were not accusations, they were facts. Evidence of hidden archives stored inside Royal Lodge, the home she had lived in since 1997. Sarah studied the materials for nearly 10 minutes, eyes scanning each timestamp, location marker, and handwritten note. Her breathing grew unsteady. "I didn't know," she repeated, voice cracking. "My home, my daughter's childhood home, was used for this?" William didn't soften, but he didn't blame her. "You weren't the target," he said, "but you were the hiding place." Sarah nodded, tears threatening. "I'll help you find who did this, whatever it takes." The emotional blow came next. William warned her that public speculation could spiral once the investigation expanded. "People will ask," he said. "They'll assume." Sarah's fear sharpened instantly. "Please, my girls," William reassured her. "They're not involved. They won't be touched." PR teams were already preparing statements, protective wording, buffer strategies. But inside palace walls, reputations are delicate. Even innocence can be bruised by proximity. Sarah knew this. She'd experienced it in 1992, 1996, and again in 2010. Yet despite the looming narrative risk, Sarah cooperated fully. She listed former contractors, recalled staff from the early 2000s, and offered names she remembered from renovations in 1998 to 2004. Her memory, despite years passing, was sharp. William wasn't looking for blame. He was looking for a trail. And Sarah helped lay it out. When she left, he thanked her. She didn't expect gratitude. She expected fallout. And she wasn't wrong. Internal circles were already whispering. With cooperation secured and suspects narrowing, William prepared the final phase of the investigation. A classified security review was activated at 7:15 a.m. the next day. Internal files were locked. Staff movement logs were sealed. The photographs from Box 5 were placed in the Royal Archive's highest tier. The stripped title remained off-record, but its impact echoed everywhere. The family wasn't just responding, they were fortifying, and William was ready to deliver the final directive. What happens next? The review began immediately. By 8 a.m., all royal residences, Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace, Windsor Castle, and Royal Lodge, entered a heightened security protocol not used since 2011. Digital access logs from 1996 to 2004 were re-scanned. Contractor records from 1998 were compared against tax databases. Even old visitor sign-ins from 2000 to 2002 were analyzed. This wasn't cleanup. This was excavation, digging through decades of shadows to expose whoever had built the hidden archive. The photos and documents from Box 5 were reclassified into the highest protection tier, one typically reserved for constitutional crises. Only 3 people now had access: William, the head of royal security, and King Charles. The images, some taken in forbidden palace corridors, others in Diana's private quarters, were sealed inside a temperature-controlled vault beneath the palace. The room had been used previously for only 2 events: the 2002 Golden Jubilee security overhaul and preparations after the 2017 Westminster incident. William then ordered a permanent overhaul of palace surveillance, including blind spot elimination, restricted access restructuring, and a complete technical rebuild of the entire system. The plan would take 22 months and cost millions, but the Prince of Wales didn't blink at the estimate. To him, this wasn't an expense. It was protection. Protection of memory, of legacy, of the institution his mother once feared and loved in equal measure. Internally, the stripped title remained unannounced, but every senior aide understood what it meant. The monarchy had shifted under William, quietly but decisively. His leadership wasn't ceremonial. It was operational, controlled, steel-backed. In private, one official described him this way: "He leads like a man with nothing left to lose, and everything left to protect." William didn't deny it. His final statement was simple: "No more shadows in this family." The royal title was just the beginning. What William found buried inside Sarah Ferguson's home wasn't just paperwork. It was betrayal. Surveillance notes, photos of Diana, blind spots no outsider should have known. Though Sarah cooperated fully, the scandal still left a mark. Now, with classified archives sealed, a sweeping internal review underway, and silent power shifting behind palace walls, the monarchy is on high alert. William's message couldn't be clearer. Loyalty is earned, and secrets have consequences. For the first time in years, the firm isn't protecting reputations. It's protecting itself. And no title is safe.